I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this week's episode of the Stage is Mine podcast. I'm your host, Terrance Hill, presented to you by Double ETV. This week, it is my honor and privilege to bring to the program nurse, activist, and the CEO of One Divine Line to Health, Esther Flores.
Yeah, we gotta rise up, yo. Go for broke, give everything, better yet give your all. They don't wanna see you win, nevertheless you'll evolve. Wanna see my demise, you can be in for a surprise. Cause the sun ain't about to set, now it's about to rise. Come hell or high water, we gotta rise up. Despite the storm.
All right, I want to thank everybody to the Stage is Mine podcast. I'm your host, Terrance Hill, presented to you by Double ETV. It's my privilege and honor to have on the program today nurse, activist, and the CEO of One Divine Line to Health, Esther Flores. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. As long as I'm with you, I'm cool.
Yeah, it's been a while since I got a chance to see you. What's new? What's going on with you right now?
Well, you know what? Especially this week, it's been a hellacious week. But part of what we do is we gotta love the hell out of the people that we're serving.
Absolutely.
You know how it is. You know my story. Working in the trenches here in Columbus has been arduous, but at the same time, it's been a blessing when you hear the success stories in this dark world of human trafficking and homelessness.
Yes. Tell the audience that's tuning in. Tell them a little bit about yourself, your background.
I am a professional nurse. I am Puerto Rican. I grew up in the hood of New York City, one of the poorest boroughs, which is the Bronx. And it's kind of interesting because I was raised by a single mom. She raised me and my brother for a few years, and then my stepdad came in. But it was hard. It was a hard life. And it's like, I feel like I'm coming back to New York City. And it's an area right now where I'm located after opening the first full-time drop-in center for women, their children, and trans women who are being trafficked in our city. It's the same culture. Poverty is very destructive. It's a health crisis. It's literally a public health crisis. And I'm in a city where a lot of the leaders don't want to admit that we have that problem. So we're just trying to do everything that we can. And because we are working with traumatized women, we need women to do the job. And it's hard because it's a scary job, but we're doing it and we're loving people and we're meeting them where they're at through street outreach. And it's sad, but I also have fun doing it, especially when you see the success stories.
Yeah, definitely. What made you want to become a nurse?
Well, part of it is the lack of access for people like myself. My mom was speaks Spanish, and she still speaks Spanish, and she still lives in New York City. And we had limited access at one point. And right now, what I'm seeing is that in America, there are a lot of people without health care. And as a nurse, I feel that I can advocate for those who have none, who have no health care. And how we do it is by meeting them where they're at, in the streets, in the abandonments, in the campgrounds where there are multiple people. We're also talking about families, parents with kids. We're talking about people living in cars, families living in cars here in America, and they have health issues. And part of what I do is, do what I can as a home care nurse. Well, I feel like I'm bringing the home care approach into these places. So this is this was Nurses Week. It ended on the 12th. And I really like the fact that our founder in our profession implemented infection control, which are harm reduction strategies in the Crimean War, and she had a lot to go against with, especially it was men, it still is. Healthcare is, especially medicine, is a male dominated, field. And she had to go against the status quo and tell them, hey guys, you need to wash your hands. You need to do this, you need to do that. But guess what? Those infection control measures have helped many people even nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us a little bit about One Divine Line of Health and how you gave birth to that particular organization.
Well, the intentions were, it was a good idea that became a God idea. I truly believe in God. With all the stuff that we've seen and here and abroad, we have to really rely on a higher power. And I'm surprised still I haven't lost my sanity. It's so cruel what we're seeing. So I started seeing some injustices in home care and in the hospital setting, medical supplies that were being thrown away. And I'm like, we need to do something else than just having them go into the landfills. So I started the nonprofit by gathering medical supplies and taking them to other countries and making sure that the supplies got there. But then 2 years, almost a year and a half into the nonprofit, I decided to just focus more, in Central America, and I started seeing more of children being trafficked. So I came back here, and that's actually when I had met you and some other folks, spoke about human trafficking abroad, and a gentleman heard my story and said, well, what about if I buy you a house, purchase it, because we got human trafficking issues here? And I'm like, well, that's fine. I thought he was just talking, because a lot of things, and you're well aware that people promise nonprofits and then they don't come through, including our local leaders, or people that get elected. But this gentleman came through 6 months or 7 months after. The guy calls me and says, here, I got the keys. And then that's how everything started. So, and unfortunately, Columbus, which is the capital of the state of Ohio, has become a hub of not only human trafficking, but drug trafficking. So they're tied together. So that's how I got entrenched into the human trafficking world here.
Wow. How many women would you say you've helped over the years? I mean, I know you go out on Friday nights and you do your outreach.
Well, we usually go we're out on the streets 2 to 3 times a week. We have actually, as of last year, thanks to the CARES Act, we were able to purchase another vehicle. So that you're aware, last year we saw 3,094 human trafficking victims, covering the 4 corners on one love bug. And in that love bug, I didn't name it the love bug. It's a red commercial vehicle. But they call it the love bug because out of it, we feed the women, we clothe them. We do, I'm a nurse, so I do first aid. Part of first aid is sometimes removing sutures, staples, cleaning busted lips. I mean, our women get raped, we take people into recovery. We also take them into the hospital. Of course, this is not during an 8 to 5 type of a schedule. This is after, this is the nightlife because they're sex workers. But if you compare those numbers, and those numbers were they were more than double than 2019, where we served 1,511 women. And that's because of the COVID pandemic. And we didn't even count the men. All right. So we don't discriminate. If there's a homeless man that needs food, we provide food. But most of what we do is we try to serve the women. So we have touched probably in the last 5 years, and we've lost a lot of people, unfortunately, to the opiate crisis and to violence on the streets. I would probably say maybe over 5,000.
That's amazing.
Yes, and we have success stories. We have more than 100 women who are out of the life, and are alive, and some of them have had their families restored. I keep in touch with them, but it's hard on the trenches. So we see a lot. We see a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. How did your training in college to become a nurse help you with your with what you're doing now?
College. Well, I have several degrees, my story. I think what happened was, and I think what's shocking is that my forensic degree, I didn't know that it would be beneficial in the trenches. Just because, what I'm dealing with, I literally see walking people. I call it like the walking dead. And a lot of the issues that we're facing, especially with our women, is that we have men that violate them, and they are afraid to call the cops, because we have had cops, especially on the West Side, that rape our women. These are the same cops that only get a slap in the hand, and internal affairs comes in. They even interview me, and I'm telling them what I see with my own eyes. He picks up a woman, drops her off at the corner, and he still has a badge, and he's still in the same area, and I'm not saying that all cops are bad,
Right.
but the problem that we have with policing is that when we need to call 911, they're not there to help us, and that is so frustrating. So that's why we have to bring our own way of protecting ourselves. We carry knives, we have to carry brass knuckle, which is now legal here in the state of Ohio, tasers and pepper spray, because if something happens, we need to protect ourselves because the cops are unavailable. You see that mess that we're in? So part of the forensic degree is just made me more aware of having a forensic nurse to do rape kits and things of that nature. But our women are jaded by the system. The nursing degree has been very helpful because, it's about compassion, it's about empathy, it's about providing the quality type of care. It's the golden rule. You respect people. You want the golden rule to actually lead you in your tactics in working with people. So it's helped a lot, because a lot of our folks are traumatized. They don't want to go to a hospital. They sure don't want to see the cops, because incarceration is not rehabilitation. A lot of them get locked up. And I have a different approach on that too. So
Esther, what is human sex trafficking, and tell us some examples of it?
Well, human trafficking, it's like an umbrella. It's forceful. This is how I would say what I'm going to start. I'm going to start it by saying human trafficking is the worst kind of human atrocity that exists in this world. And I don't know why, and it continues to be so prevalent here in the state of, in the United States. Because you think of the United States, it's a place of freedom. That's what it represents, and you got people trying to come here because they want to live in the land of the free. And I'm like, this is the land of the freaks, because of people who say that they represent us, and that we have a constitution that is supposed to protect people like myself. Mind you, I am an American. It's not happening. People are so focused in the skin issues instead of looking at sin. All right, you got to remove that. We're talking about the lust, you're talking about, gluttony, you're talking about, all these evil things that it's seen in human trafficking. How can a human body be considered a commodity so that somebody else can live comfortably? Am I right?
Right.
We got Jeff Epstein's everywhere. We got them here. They're billionaires, they're judges, they're cops, they're pastors, they're teachers, they are soldiers. I mean, we're talking about people in the armed forces. So it's forceful coercion, and they prey not only on women, but on children and even men, so human trafficking, and what I'm talking about, and what I'm mentioning to you, we're looking at, sex trafficking, but what about organ harvesting? Organ harvesting, it's a big issue. Many people, what people don't understand is that when they're coming to the United States from other countries, you got gangs that lure them into places so that their bodies, you hear that, they can be killed because they're indigenous. That means, that's good blood there. Like, I'm an O negative, my blood is precious, but you imagine people who have no diabetes, people who have no hepatitis C, HIV, they kill them, and they take their organs and they sell them in the market. And you know what? They sell them here. People, they're Americans that need organs. They'll go abroad because they know that they can go ahead and get a kidney, can get, can get whatever they want at a minimal price. Isn't
Wow.
that pathetic?
Wow.
But people don't want to talk about organ harvesting, and that is still happening here
Jeez.
and abroad.
Yeah. What's a typical day for you at your organization? What's a typical day that you guys sometimes, you get there 8, 9 in the morning? Like what goes on, typical day for you?
Well, my morning, well, my shift is in the evening. Most I work 40 hours, and I have an angel that works with me. She's our street outreach director. Our hours of operation is usually after 2. From Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. I can't tell you. It's every day is different. For example, on Wednesday, we're there not even 15 minutes. The girls are coming into the drop-in center. Someone knocks at the door, with a cat. You hear that? With a cat. And I get yelled at, someone say, "Hey, Esther, we need you. We need your nursing skills." I didn't even know it was a cat, what we're talking about, The cat got mauled, all right, by a pit bull. It was a homeless cat, so this is what I'm talking about. This is the west side of Columbus. So I looked at the cat. I couldn't believe what was going on. It looked like his abdomen, was open and his bowels were gonna, perf. So I'm like, well, the only thing I can do is apply pressure. So I ran upstairs to my office because I keep my equipment there, and took an ABD, and I had to apply first aid to a cat, and I'm allergic to cats. So while we did that, we wrapped the cat, and then one of our volunteers took it to Ohio State, and I think we lost the cat because it was pretty sad. I mean, like, I can't tell you, it's not consistent. We always have women, that come, sometimes they are raped, so they come to us. So, I have to do the whole trauma thing with them. The only thing they want to do is they want to wash up, be fed. Sometimes I hold them, sometimes I pray with them. I always offer them to take them to the hospital. They say no. Hey, do you want me to call 911, get a police report? They say no. So I'm just present, and it's erratic. Like yesterday, I was at the State House advocating for the trench workers, and my shift started, earlier because I had to speak on behalf of the homeless folks in our city and the human trafficking. So it's kind of hard to say, but I can't sit down. That's my problem. You got me sitting down. But the type of job that I have, I'm constantly on the go. When we do street outreach, we're out and about, in the 4 corners of our city, so it's busy.
Tell us about some of your programs and services with One Divine.
Line to Health. Okay. Part of what we do is primarily we do street outreach. We do it 2 to 3 times a week. It's at nighttime. It's after 7 p.m. because the people that we work are sex workers for the most part. I think it's very important for everyone to understand too, is that we don't judge people. And whenever they see that red vehicle, they come to us. We also work with trans women. The trans women receive the most, it hurts me, because I care for them and I love them. They get hurt the most. They're raped, they're beaten, because when the John finds out that, is not a woman, they get beaten. And so we work with trans women too, and we're advocating for them because it's very important for everyone to understand that they also need safe havens. Here in Columbus, we have no safe houses. You listen to this? No safe houses for women who are for trans women who are over 24 years of age. So that's why they're homeless. So even if they need treatment, that's another thing that we've realized. A lot of the treatment centers, they go by the anatomical figure of the person. So they would take a trans woman and put them in a unit where they're men. Well, what happens in that unit? Sexual harassment, and they also can be victimized. They can also be sexually violated. You see this?
Right.
So from the street outreach, we have drop-in center.
Mhm.
And we were the first in Franklin County with a lot of opposition to open it. Last year, we wanted to open the center, but with COVID, things were delayed
Mhm.
because the warehouses were shut down. So we opened in January, and it's been very, very busy. So the girls come in there. It's purely harm reduction. They come in there, they wash up, we feed them. We just don't give them like things to go. They usually sit down, we feed them a warm meal. That's the goal. And they rest. If they need to be linked to resources, we go ahead and we do that. We tell them come in earlier because our meal plan is from 6 to 8 p.m. So
Okay.
that's primarily what we do. And if I have an opportunity to go abroad, which I haven't because of COVID, I would go to places, to bring medical supplies, because that's still part of what we do, provide medical supplies to underserved areas that are,
Right.
outside of the United States. So those are kind of the three things, that we primarily focus on.
Okay. Give people a vivid picture of what you see whenever you're out in the streets. What are you seeing?
I see darkness. I see frail women. I see them, crying at times. We've been told we're angels. I've been told, hey, I was just praying if you just could come by and just give me a meal or a hug or a sweater or a hoodie. I just see frail people. I see broken souls,
Mm.
beautiful souls that are broken and they need help.
Yeah.
And just like with a trans woman, I see the same exact thing. And sadly, this year we've been seeing more men. It started last year because of COVID. So we got men who are handsome, and they want to work, and they're out there involved in survival sex. So that has been more prevalent this year. And now we are carrying supplies for them. So that's kind of what we see every night when we're out there. And we're not only doing it once a night. We're doing it like 2 to 3 times a week. And we also provide Narcan because a lot of them, in their misery, they're self-medicating
Mm.
because they find themselves that they don't have a self-worth. So that's why they self-medicate. They're hurting folks. So we try to provide them with, at that moment, that we come to their presence, we're trying to create a safety net for them. We want them to experience the love of Christ while we're there, and we do everything that we do everything that we can so that they can feel that they're loved. And we genuinely love them. I'm not saying like I love you. I'm
Mm.
saying no, I love you and I'll care for you right now. What can I do at this moment that you can feel better? And most of the time is a basic need. I want food. I want a jacket. I want deodorant. I need the hygiene kit. So it gives them a sense of self-worth.
Definitely. How do women, children, men, whoever the victims of the human sex trafficking, how do they get caught in that web?
That's a horrible situation. A lot of times, our folks are groomed. They're groomed in dog cages. They're groomed in basements. Sometimes it's a survival situation where a mom is by herself and she has a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. It's a generational thing. So if that's what she knew when she was 12 or 13, then she's going to try to even coerce, her daughter and make her feel guilty and say, hey, you know what, can you do me this favor? And then that happens. It's like the sugar daddy. The sugar daddy is 60 years old and he sees an 18-year-old who is being raised in a family, or even a 16 or 18-year-old, and he's drawn to her. And then that connection is like, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to give you a watch, or I'm going to go ahead and give you a phone. And then it starts escalating. So it's like, you do me this favor, then I can do this for you. And sometimes it becomes too late for that person, because as they rely on that person, sometimes they take them out of the familiar setting, and then they become totally dependent on that person. So it's a very complicated web. It entangles people, and it's horrible, but it's still existing.
Wow. What can the church and community do to get involved? I know you're dealing with a lot of negligence where people can do things and they're not doing it, but those who want to get involved, what can be done to help?
Well, the church is the church, right? I think part of what I do, and I'm not going to talk bad about it because now I've become a minister in the past few weeks, and we talked about that. I'm not going to be the regular type of church going, put on a suit, and look pretty, put on lipstick, and have a big Bible and preach. I'm not going to do that. I reach. That's what true ministers of Christ do. If we emulate the teachings of the true pastor, which was Jesus Christ, we would know that we would be in the alleys, on the streets, in the abandonments, in those homeless camps, and reach out and be present with them, and break bread. Like, did you ever see Jesus just preaching and preaching and preaching and that's all? No, he broke bread. He met the needs of the people, because the word of God says he moved with compassion. And that's truly what a minister is. Well, I get kicked out of churches because I'm the atypical person who only speaks truth, because I believe that truth can set people free. You got people, well, right now they're watching TV and I'm fine, or they're doing a lot of Zoom calls, and I understand. But guess what? The people that I serve have no cell phones. They have no phones, they have no access to media, so they need to be reached instead to be preached at. So what we're trying to do is continue to be visible. We practice the COVID precautions, which I think that's gone over and beyond. None of the people that I have served has had COVID. You hear that? Not one. We do hand out, the hand sanitizers. We hand out masks. We try to do everything that we can. And we apply the infection control. But the true infection, it's us. We need to be infectious with the love of Christ and create the love pandemic, which crosses out of our city and goes elsewhere. That's what love is. And true ministers and the true church of Christ would be looking at people like myself. You can look at our website, 1dl2h.org, and press the donate button. Guess what? I'm doing the Great Commission, and we need your funds so that we can continue to expand in our services, because we need 3 more drop-in centers in Columbus, Ohio. So I see those places as the church, because we're bringing people into the love of Christ. We don't preach, we don't even have to preach to them. They know that the presence of God is in that place.
Yeah. Now, I used to live in Columbus, lived in Lewis Center. And I know a lot of times people just kind of looking at just the west side, but what other areas of Columbus are you seeing a lot of trafficking in?
Actually, in the Four Corners, we are in the Linden area, and that's where our first safe house is at, and we have our second house on the west side, and that. The east side, off of Main and off of Main Street, Livingston, James Road. We also have it on the south end, Livingston and Parsons. So the interesting thing about our work is that because we've been in those areas in the past 5 years, people know us. So we see the numbers because we meet them where they're at. So like the Salvation Army, they have their little program, and they don't come close to those places because they have a white van, and most of our girls get raped in those white vans. So we just do what we do because it's a word by mouth. A girl may tell me, hey, can you go to this, this dope house or this trap house, because so-and-so is there and she needs something like, so it's word by mouth in this community. We don't we don't share this information, with anybody because we are trusted, and one thing about us is that our trust is intentional, and you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
We are respected because we demonstrate it through our action, through the acts of kindness, that we can be trusted. So all these other organizations don't even come close. So that's why we see so many people in the four corners of our city.
In a work that's so draining, and your heart always goes out, you want to help. Some nights you may be out there and see a teenager. What do you do to keep your sanity? I mean, I know you get pulled in so many directions, but how do you try to keep your balance where you don't get so overwhelmed, and sometimes you may lose somebody that you've been trying to help? So what do you do to kind of just stay sane in the line of work that you do?
Part of what I do is, believe it or not, I have to pray. I have to have a moment of silence, or I cry. This year I'm doing better. My spiritual mom is a survivor, of human trafficking, worst kind of human trafficking, and she's been very helpful. Because in her presence, I can cry. And I'm not saying that I'm a crybaby. I really didn't cry until I started doing this. Because when I grew up, if I cried, it was like, you're weak, but I cry because it's cleansing. It's cleansing tears. And I try not to cry in the presence of the girls when they're crying, but sometimes I do. I'm human. I do work out. Like today, I got up early this morning. I just jumped it was cold. I went to the gym, did some, ran on the treadmill, did some cardio, also did a circuit training because I knew I only had an hour, to work out. So I try to take care of my body, because part of what I see is what we call, I experience it sometimes, is what we call vicarious trauma. It's the secondary trauma. I believe in counseling, but if I go to counseling, they're going to re-victimize me. So I only work with people that understand my heart. Like even Terrance, we talk,
Right.
because I know that you're non-judgmental. And even if I drop the F-bomb, or I'm having a bad day, I only associate with people that understand me, because it's a constant fight. And I thought, I could lose my mind, but it is by the grace of God,
Yeah.
and the people that I work with, even the women, and Ellie and the volunteers, we're a family. They know when I hurt, and we pray. Believe it or not, prayer has been what has kept me going, so that nothing happens, because
Yeah.
it's dangerous out here.
Um, a John. I know some
Mhm.
people always assume that a John is just a man, but you seen female Johns? And then also, what can be done to help the Johns? I know the women have their issues, but what can be done to help people who look for that type of thing, people who want to victimize other people? Or have you seen in their past some type of issue, or a lot of these people are married, or they're in high ranking positions and things like that? Why are they doing this?
Most of the Johns, like you already said, you described it, they come from all walks of life. We've even have a judge, who is still sitting on the bench. He's that pervert, and he locks up the girls, and he's married, and he has daughters, and he's still, he is still here, and the high rank, you got cops, you got all of that. But when it comes to, women, no, I have not seen Johns that are women.
Mm,
Are there madams? I'm sure there are. And
mm,
there have been some that have been locked up. But most of what I see, because I see them, they're men from all walks of life, and they're all flavors, all colors. I see Mexicans,
mm,
I see, men from all nationalities. What I have realized is that the Johns need drop-in centers too. And a few weeks ago, I testified to city council because I realized it's harm reduction too. The Johns are hurting. If you got a 75-year-old man on Sullivan Avenue trying to pick up a 20-year-old, he's hurting because a lot of the stuff that he's experiencing, he wants to talk to someone. And I've heard that a lot of times, the women say, we're just there, we'll give him a BJ or whatever, but he just wants to talk to somebody. Then you have the freaks who are married and want to do some freaky stuff, with the women, because he knows that his wife is not going to tolerate it. I do believe that, you got sex addicts out there, and we need to have drop-in centers for men so that we can help the homeless men, but also have John schools in there, so that they can maybe help each other, because if you're depressed, the only way that you can elevate yourself is by doing something good. Then maybe you should have a place to go and start have a support group where they can help them, because it's trauma, so the women who are out there, in survival mode, and they're selling themselves, they're as depressed, they are as anxious as the guy who is looking for them to provide him with the sexual fetishes, because they're fetishes.
That's the key word, fetish. Yeah, I was just about to ask you that, because maybe for some of these guys, they feel like, hey, they did something or something. But for some of these women, if that's what they're doing every day, they're almost like desensitized to it. It's like, you're just another customer, or just, they don't even get really anything out of it. So it's almost like some type of, weird fantasy or something, you know what I'm saying? Have you seen that a lot of the men, maybe their broken marriages, or maybe their desires, they feel like they express that to their wives or something, that they're going to be looked at a certain type of way, so they end up going down this web hole? And then also, how is pornography kind of tied into all this?
That's a lot. That was a mouthful there, Terrance. What I can tell you is, most of our time, remember, we work with the women. We did have an incident last year where a man followed the love bug, and it was during the summer. He stops me, and and I'm very assertive, and I looked at him, but I felt like he wasn't dangerous. So he started asking me some questions. So what do you do? And he had picked up one of our girls, and he had dropped her off where we were at, because the girl said, no, I need some stuff, and I'm going to get the stuff, and then we're done. So he gave her the money, because she already had done the deed with him. So he just started telling me his story, and he told me that he was going through depression. And he said, I'm not a bad guy. I just sometimes feel like I can pick up the girls, give them some food. And I do get, I do need some, some sexual favors, and it's quick. And then I just go about and doing things. But I am a very depressed man. You hear that? He even tells me that he's depressed. So I looked at him, and my view changed, you see, because before that, I'm like, we need to lock them up. We need to cut their penises. We need to take them and put them in I'm being honest with you, put them in an island, put all the I'm thinking of the worst. And even though I have the heart of God, but I'm a woman too. And when you see all this stuff, you get agitated. And that's one of the things that you have to understand, that, anger is dangerous. Right. In anger, people can riot and people can kill people, whatever. But righteous anger, it's about solution. You become solution driven. So I looked at this man through the eyes of compassion, and I said, oh my God, he's as broken as our women. So after I talked to him, I said, what can I do for you at this moment, And he says, I just wanted to know more of what you do. So I gave him my business card. And he said, can I just give you $20? And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, you can give me whatever you want, $20, $30, $50 or whatever. And we exchanged, money, but then I'm like, can I pray for you? And and that hit me because I prayed. It was like a minute prayer. And I was just praying for his heart. And the man was crying, So at that moment, I just said, well, they're trying to lock up the women, Does that help? No. Incarceration is not rehabilitation. And then I'm like, well, now they're trying to lock up the men and give them all these fines. Is that going to help? No. Both of these broken souls, you hear that? They need the power of love to transform them into healthy human beings, but they need safe people.
Definitely. Esther, any upcoming projects you can talk about?
They're kind of confidential right now, because I have to have the board approval, but I can tell you it's going to be explosive.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Share right quick a couple success stories.
We had a beautiful success story. Actually, she testified in our last fundraiser, which was in March. We're back into our quarterly fundraiser. I had met her during street outreach, and she visited, our drop-in center at the church. And now she's out of the life, and she's going through the whole process where she is in a sober home, outside of Columbus. She's a peer supporter. She's working with other women. She has a major interview, and I am praying that she gets the job, because women, this is another issue that we deal with. Most of our women have a record of petty theft, loitering, soliciting, drug paraphernalia. So if you have anything in your record, you can't really get a management position. This girl has the skill set to lead. I mean, she was a leader in the streets, she was a caregiver. And I would love for her to get that job, because Absolutely. If it does, it would be amazing. So, so I'm praying for her. Stories like that really makes it positive. And then when I talk to her, she cheers me up. I cheer her up. We laugh. We pray. We pray for one another, because she still cares for the girls, that are still out there, because they know she still knows some of them that are still alive. And it's funny because, like, last night I was talking to one of the girls, and she said, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I haven't seen her. And I'm like, well, I tell you why, because she's here. And then when, we're sharing these stories, and it empowers them, because I'm like, if she did it, I can do it too, but we can't force people into recovery, Terrance. They have to be ready. So there's many stories like that.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more question before we get ready to close up. Just so some people may not have the understanding. If a woman is out and she's providing services, is she always I guess you can say coerced into that? So is there a difference between prostitution and trafficking? If someone is, maybe they just enjoy sex and they can get money from it, or they're a stripper and they have a good client. And so, how do you kind of see that kind of web between someone who's just kind of doing it to make some extra money from a sugar daddy versus someone that is like forced into that particular lifestyle?
And that's really and that's a hot topic right now, because what I'd like to talk about is like the people that I work with, the women, and the trans women. They do this because of survival. Again, if you have a record, you have this record, and that's why I don't believe that locking people up is the solution, because you're just creating a longer, criminal record, which is going to make it difficult for them to have a job. It's going to be difficult for them to also even have affordable housing, which is unaffordable right now. So what we need to do is we need to change these ineffective strategies. All right. So what do? Don't lock them up, have drop-in centers. We don't have drop-in centers in these hot zones. It's a harm reduction model. For example, at the West Side, it's crazy. I mean, like I said, it was a hellacious week, but we believe that if we have this drop-in center open, then the girls are going to come in, and guess what? Out of sight, out of mind. Doesn't that make sense? The
Right.
Johns at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, if they're like looking for a woman, and they don't see her, well, she's with me. That cleans up our streets. All right.
Wow.
All of our women, they have dual diagnoses. That means they have mental health issues and they have a substance abuse issue. So they're out there to feed their habits. They're not a stripper who's out there, because she's going to college, and making $80,000 a year, so that she can have a Beamer, and go to school. It's not like that. These women cannot really even think for themselves because they're in survival mode. They get violated, they get beaten, so those are two classes of there's a difference between the sex addict, or the sex worker, and then you have sex workers like ours who are on survival mode versus the sex worker that is not under the influence and it's a choice, The human trafficking person, where we do have, I've seen that because now you have women who are mentally, not there. So they have a pimp who knows that and receives her social security, that is awful. People don't even want to address that situation too, so that's why it's so complicated. But I'm focusing on the women that I work with and the trans women and their kids, because they have no other choice but to sell themselves, to feed their addiction or to feed their kids. Why should a woman be out there selling her body to bring food to the table? But it happens.
Right.
So does that make sense when I break it down
definitely
that way?
Yeah. And the Johns, be careful. I mean, it's very easy to get robbed, to get caught up in a sting operation, or anything can be going on. So I mean, your work and what you do is just amazing. I'm definitely glad I've got the opportunity to connect with you, and I definitely want to see you just continue to touch as many lives as you can. Before we wrap up, I want to always do this in the program. I'm just going to throw a couple rapid fire questions at you, and you just answer. And the first thing that comes to the top of your head, what makes me smile is?
My dog. Every day, every night when I come home, he brings a toy, and it's like, Mom, you're here, and he is so joyful,
Okay.
And the women make me smile, but he is just a character,
When I'm not working,
when I'm not working out, sleeping. If I can sleep a little bit more, that's fine. I love to read. I love to run outside. Now that the weather is breaking, I love to run. I love to go out there at the park and just run and just breathe, that clean air.
The first thing I do in the morning is?
I get up out of bed and I say, thank you, Lord, for giving me life.
Family means?
It's not. Family for me is not having like a mom or a dad. Family is being among people that love you unconditionally and that I can love. And the reason why I say that is that I do have a mom and I do have a brother and they're part of my family. But I have a spiritual mom and I have a spiritual dad, and they're part of my family. What people don't understand is that I have street daughters. I haven't birthed any kids, but the people that I serve have become daughters and have become sons. So I've become part of like this bigger foster family. So they're part of my life, just like I'm a part of their life, their lives. So that's what I see. It's not like the nuclear family. It's the blended family, and I also have supporters that have become a part of my family too.
What is a true friend?
Someone that I can laugh, someone that I can just be, and they don't judge me. That's what a friend is.
My favorite food is?
Rice and beans with fried chicken, Puerto Rican style.
God is?
Love.
And lastly, what do you want your legacy to be?
She loved well. I want that on my tombstone. She loved well.
Okay. Esther, it's been a privilege and an honor to have you on the program today. Anyone that's interested in donating to One Divine Line to Health, how can they do that? And also, how can they connect with you on your social media platforms?
Our organization is One Divine Line to Health. It's the number one, the character, DIVINE, because sometimes it's just too long. And then the number two, health, HEALTH. And our website is 1dl2h.org, 1dl2h.org.
Well, you'll definitely be getting a donation from Double E, and we just appreciate you, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're definitely making a difference.
And I just want to say thank you. I really am honored to be, just in your presence. And most importantly, your lyrics have really helped me. And I've talked to you about some of the songs. I have my favorite. And the one that has really helped me out in the last few weeks is Journey. You get it, because life is a journey. And you have these vulnerable souls that need help, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, when you started talking about human trafficking, I'm like, oh my God, he went there, So just keep it real, Terrance. Just don't. Your music has been beneficial because I love music too.
I appreciate that.
So thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, I love you, Esther, and I definitely look forward to talking to you soon.
All righty, peace.
All right, take care.
Love. All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. And
I want to thank everybody for their support, those of you that have been watching all of our podcasts. If you're interested in donating to the Stage is Mine podcast, you can send that two ways, via PayPal or Cash App. Our Cash App is Terry from the A, and our PayPal is doubleetvmedia101. Support this machine today to help us continue to do what we're doing. Also, if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the Stage is Mine podcast, email me today at doubleetv@yahoo.com or call 334-498-5394. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for tuning in to today's program. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell for all things pertaining to the Stage is Mine podcast. Until next time, take care.
Broke, give everything, better yet, give your all. They don't want to see you win, nevertheless, show evolve. Want to see my demise, you can be